Welcome to Story Spark, your ultimate destination for enchanting tales, fables, and life lessons. Dive into captivating stories for adults and others that teach important morals and inspire positive thinking. From classic animal fables to inspiring life lessons, our animated and narrated stories make learning fun and memorable. Subscribe for new moral stories every week and spark your imagination with every tale.
Max was a mongrel of modest lineage and immense constant hunger. He possessed a relentless, nagging appetite that no meal seemed capable of fully satisfying, and his eyes perpetually scanned the ground for anything edible, viewing the world as a competition for resources. One crisp, cold afternoon, his tireless scavenging led him to a butcher's back alley where he made the score of a lifetime, a hefty, marrow-filled bone, still richly glistening with streaks of pink, succulent meat. It was the largest and most desirable prize he had ever found, a treasure that immediately fueled his innate possessiveness and paranoia. He snatched the bone quickly, clamping his jaws tightly around the prize, and immediately glanced around with fierce, suspicious intensity. Every shadow seemed to conceal a rival, every distant sound a potential thief intent on stealing his glorious find. This magnificent bone was far too valuable, too perfect to risk consuming on the bustling, unpredictable street. He decided he needed a private, secluded spot where he could savor every single morsel of the succulent meat and crack the marrow without the constant, distracting fear of confrontation. Clutching his prize firmly between his teeth, Max set off, his powerful legs driving him quickly toward the secluded, peaceful woods on the outskirts of the town, believing his profound greed had been justly rewarded by the silent, generous universe.
The substantial, heavy bone was a physical challenge, a cumbersome burden that made the already difficult journey surprisingly slow and intensely exhausting. Max had to hold his head at an awkward, slightly strained angle to prevent the prized bone from dragging constantly on the dusty, rough ground, forcing him to take uneven, hesitant steps. Every time he had to jump over a fallen log or quickly navigate a patch of sharp, unexpected rubble, he instinctively tightened his already sore jaws, terrified that the precious bone might slip completely from his tiring grip and shatter on the hard stones. The sheer effort required to maintain his secure hold made his muscles tremble with strain, and his constant paranoia only added to his immense fatigue. The beautiful, savory smell of the fresh meat, wafting temptingly past his sensitive nose, was a cruel, relentless distraction, urging him to stop immediately and commence the long-anticipated feast. Yet the deep, overwhelming fear of being suddenly discovered by another, stronger dog, an ever-present, haunting threat, propelled him forward relentlessly. He kept his focused eyes fixed straight ahead, seeking the sanctuary of the tall, dark trees, determined not to risk his bounty until he was absolutely certain he was far beyond the reach of any other greedy, opportunistic canine rivals. His great prize was both a profound blessing and a significant curse, demanding tireless vigilance and surprising, persistent physical effort.
Eventually, Max reached the deep, flowing boundary of the wood, a narrow, fast-running stream spanned by a very simple old wooden bridge. The stream was unusually high due to recent, unexpected rainfall, its dark, cool surface mirroring the blue sky with a surprising, unnerving clarity that was entirely undisturbed by any movement.
He paused cautiously at the edge, shifting his heavy weight from one paw to the other, momentarily hesitating to cross. The bridge's planks were slightly wet and slick, and the roaring sound of the water passing quickly beneath his feet made him feel acutely nervous. This final obstacle was a hurdle he hadn't fully anticipated. He gathered his courage, reminding himself of the rich, rewarding feast waiting for him on the other side, and stepped slowly onto the rickety, old structure, taking slow, deliberate, incredibly careful steps. It was exactly halfway across the wooden structure that he instinctively glanced down, his eye catching a sudden, disturbing movement in the unnaturally calm, watery surface below. There, perfectly outlined in the clear, flawless reflection, was another dog, standing firmly on what appeared to be an identical bridge. And, most horrifyingly, he was also carrying a bone.
Max immediately stopped dead in his tracks, his entire body tensing like a tightly coiled spring, his protective instincts suddenly screaming in urgent alarm. He studied the mirrored image intently, his dark, sharp eyes narrowed into skeptical slits of intense suspicion. This rival dog, this watery phantom, was a startlingly similar size and shape to Max himself, possessing the same distinctive mottled brown and black fur. But the single detail that seized his greedy, focused attention, instantly eclipsing everything else, was the rival's bone. It looked, quite simply, much larger, far more glistening, and unquestionably superior to the precious, heavy one Max already held tightly clenched between his jaws. A wave of intense, irrational jealousy and profound dissatisfaction instantly washed away all his previous relief and hard-won contentment. "Unbelievable!" Max silently fumed, a low, barely audible growl rumbling deep in his chest. "That arrogant thief is carrying a far bigger prize, a far more magnificent bone than mine. How dare he display such wealth so openly, in my territory, without immediately challenging me first?" He completely forgot the true, deep value of the treasure he already possessed, seeing only the perceived, magnificent advantage of this watery rival. The sight of the rival's seemingly larger bone was a consuming poison, quickly corrupting all of Max's rational, practical thought. He completely forgot the immediate danger of the great height, the precarious bridge, and the slippery, fast-running water rushing mercilessly below. All caution and common sense vanished completely, violently replaced by a fierce, driving, all-consuming greed that burned like an aggressive fire in his focused mind. Max began to pace nervously on the wooden planks, his front paws moving restlessly back and forth, trying to carefully calculate the precise angle of attack against this unforeseen watery threat. He determined that his superior size, or at least his powerful, ferocious bark, would certainly be enough to easily intimidate this insolent mirrored dog into dropping his prize. Max envisioned the glorious, perfect outcome. The rival dog would be startled, immediately dropping his bone into the clear water, and Max, a true opportunist, would then quickly race down to the stream bank to easily retrieve both of the magnificent prizes. The sheer overwhelming lure of owning two large, beautiful bones was far too powerful to resist. He took a deep, shaky breath, carefully steadying his body to launch the ferocious, intimidating attack, intent on claiming the ultimate, doubled bounty. With a final, decisive surge of reckless, consuming greed, Max braced his powerful body firmly and prepared to deliver his most intimidating, deafening, and purely terrifying snarl. He raised his head high, pulling his lips back violently to completely expose his long, sharp white teeth in a truly menacing display of pure aggression aimed directly at the rival dog in the water below. His eyes were wide with a fierce, unwavering determination to strike fear into his illusionary enemy. As he did this, however, he had to abruptly open his jaws completely, releasing the tight, firm grip he had maintained so laboriously on his own cherished bone for the last agonizing hour. For a terrible, agonizing second, the heavy, marrow-filled bone hung precariously in the open, cool air, momentarily suspended by sheer inertia. Then, with a profound, sickening sense of inevitable total loss, the bone tumbled rapidly from his grasping reach, falling quickly and silently through the bridge's rough wooden railing. It struck the deep swirling water with a soft, final plop, immediately vanishing instantly beneath the dark, fast-moving surface current without a trace.
The deafening roar of the water was the only sound that greeted Max's furious, aggressive snarl. He immediately peered frantically down into the deep, dark stream, no longer seeing the confident, challenging reflection of the rival dog. Instead, all he saw was his own horrified, empty face staring back at him from the now turbulent water, a look of profound, devastating stupidity etched clearly upon his features. The prized, magnificent bone he had labored so hard to secure and keep safe was gone completely, instantly swept away by the powerful, relentless current. And with the cataclysmic loss of his own possession, the illusionary bone, the one he had so desperately coveted and sought to aggressively steal, also vanished entirely. There were no longer two bones, no longer a potential doubled feast. There was only the cold, unyielding reality of the rushing dark water and his completely empty, aching jaws. The devastating realization hit him with the terrible, heavy weight of a sudden, unexpected stone. He had recklessly sacrificed the true and immediate value of what he had for the impossible, illusionary promise of something far greater. His stomach rumbled loudly, intensely mocking the immense, irreparable foolishness of his own unchecked, consuming greed.
Max stood perfectly still on the precarious old wooden bridge for a long, quiet moment, his powerful body defeated and utterly drained, gazing remorsefully down at the spot where his cherished dinner had vanished forever. The sheer, utter emptiness of his jaw was a heavy, constant, throbbing reminder of his catastrophic error, a painful, physical symbol of his foolish, blinding covetousness. He had begun his journey with a massive, satisfying bone, a complete treasure that would have lasted him an entire day. But his insatiable, relentless desire for a perceived, magnificent more had suddenly reduced him to absolutely nothing. He eventually turned slowly and started the long, difficult walk back toward the familiar, dusty town. His head hung low in genuine shame and profound, painful regret. The bitter, unforgettable experience had taught him a severe, undeniable lesson that in aggressively grasping for something you do not truly possess, you often run the fatal risk of easily losing the good thing you already hold firmly in your hand. He continued his weary, slow journey, a much hungrier dog now, but undeniably, profoundly wiser, carrying a new, much heavier burden than the bone, the silent, constant, stinging weight of absolute, devastating regret. And so, this enduring classic fable of the dog and his reflection reminds us all of a crucial, profound truth, that we should never risk what we already securely possess by frantically grasping for the illusion of something greater. Be content with your present blessings, or you may find yourself, like Max, left with empty hands and a very painful, hungry lesson. Thank you for listening to this tale about the true cost of unchecked, profound greed.